Mike and Ashley Young of the Fields Golf Club. Welcome to the Bag Drop. How you guys doing this morning?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I got my daughter dropped off at her first day of daycare today. So it was a little emotional start to the morning, but I'm doing all right. No tears.
First day of daycare is tough.
Being with, father son though, it's got me thinking about the child relationship a lot today.
I remember the first day he went to daycare.
Tell us about it.
Huh?
Tell us about it.
I told him to go get him. I said, I can't do it. Had on blue overalls. It was tough.
That's my daughter Eleanor had pink overalls on today, and she made a mess of them as soon as I handed her off to those fine daycare people all wearing their masks now. She messed them as soon as I made the transition, but a lot like her dad.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk live golf today, guys. We're going to talk about the Fields, where members of our Atlanta chapter of NewClub are going to be hanging out a good bit, at least once a month. My goal is to get a big group of us down there in September, but I want to see more consistent play with you guys, just because of everybody that has come your way, and we got a lot of Chicagoans who have actually stopped by. They say great things about the track, so. That's kind of what this is. It's kind of an introduction of you guys and the Fields Golf Club. But I want to start with Mike and kind of your intro into the game. You didn't come into it the way that so many others end up getting into the golf industry. You were a salesman for Toro. Is that right?
Yeah, but I did that on purpose so I could get in it, because I didn't want to work for an architect. So I just, Toro was, Toro on that end of things is like Titleist. It was the company, had the irrigation, had the machinery. So you could see every golf course, talk to every superintendent, call on developers and architects, so you could end up making your network. And so that was my goal, was to work for Toro long enough to know what was what, and I could go out and I wouldn't be sitting in an office drafting or something. That was, I did that until I found somebody that let me do something.
And you met 4 or 5 golf courses a day. You were probably in the car all the time. What did you learn what did you learn about design from that experience?
Well, I would go and call on an architect, if they were going to be doing a golf course, and there weren't that many when I started. There wasn't the boom. And I might hear of a course that needed a master plan. I might go to an architect and say, hey, look, I'd go by his office and I would call on him for irrigation to get that spec'd, or call on him about mowing equipment. And so I learned that there was I couldn't put my finger on the business of how these guys were basically drawing these things and specifying them out and detailing them. But there was another group that was out there getting all that put in the dirt and built. And I was intrigued with that. And I would find the golf superintendents. Like at that time, there was a company out of Chicago called Branniger, which was Georgia was Union Camp Lumber. That was their residential real estate division. They were building a place called Skidaway Island that was 6 golf courses. And I watched them develop that, and I could go down there. I might be there 3 or 4 days at a time. We would be selling the irrigation, but I was free to go all out there, watch the shapers. And so I just kept writing names down, so that when I had figured out that there was a lot of BS in the business, and I figured out that these are the guys that actually can put it down there. And so when I kept my little black book of names and developers, and did that for about 5 years.
And what was it? Your people of the same age coming up in the business that were going to work for architects. I mean, was your route? Do you think you made it more difficult on yourself, or?
Probably, yeah. They didn't like it that you were doing it a different way, and so you obviously couldn't know what you were doing. And it was not that anybody was a bad guy. It's just that's just the way it's been done, which I think and now it's changed back. Several of us about that same time. Tom Doak was starting out about the same time I did, and he was doing the same type thing, except he was looking for the premier sites and the national type things. And people didn't really accept that. They wanted you to go to an office, draw a full set of drawings, and then bid it out to these contractors.
That was just the accepted way of doing things.
That was the accepted way of doing it. It had evolved to that on purpose, and it was. Now I think it's changed.
You had a conversation on another podcast, I believe, with our friend Andy at the Fried Egg, and there's this quote I wanted to follow up with you on. You said, "I didn't know enough to know what I was doing," and this is about the Fields Golf Course, by the way, your first build, which we'll talk plenty of. I didn't know enough to know what I was doing. If I had, I probably would have messed it all up. Can you tell us more about what you mean there?
Yeah, I mean, like I just basically went out. It was a cotton field, and it had a few trees in it and all. And I started routing a golf course, trying to get the shots that I had perceived we knew. And a lot of shots might be blind in a way. Not that they're unsafe, but if I'd have been sitting in an office somewhere, I would have been told, you can't put that shot there because it'll be blind, or you can't have a bunker there because you got to come off the cart path and walk to the green. You'd have to walk. It would restrict your space. So there were a lot of those kind of issues. And you learn a few things when you're out there before that. I mean, like I'd already learned the construction basics, like, no irrigation. Irrigation heads always need to be to both sides of the approach. When it comes around the green, don't put one right in the middle of where you're going to come into the green. We had all those things down, but the routing, I like the routing, but a guy that had been trained by a modern day architect would say it's not worth a damn. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But is that like objectively, it wouldn't, if it was a scorecard of the routing, that it would, miss on a few points based on today's modern criteria, or is it a better routing because you didn't have that checklist?
Yes,
it is.
It's better because it's just it's random golf. It's not where, hey, I've got to do this and I got to do this, and you've already got 6 dogleg lefts. Now let's put 6 dogleg right. It's just random golf and go play. And I'm trying to convince myself that that's the way I need to do it now.
Ashley, I know there was once you started getting in the operations of the course, and you guys bought the property outright, a couple things changed. One thing that's notable that you just don't see, I mean, I don't think I can name a golf course in Illinois that does this, but you guys cut one height out at the fields. There's no fairway rough until you get to the native grasses. It's one height. So what went into that decision, and what are some advantages you guys have seen?
Some of it was economics. We were just dealing, when I first got there, before we owned it, I was using the equipment, and then I was just kind of bequeathed. And so it became we started using a 7-gang pull frame that Dad found from the 80s and refurbished it. And so we could get around quicker. The lightweight fairway units, we run it with basically 4 guys, 5 guys, 6 at the most. And so we've got 158 acres out there, about 70 of that's fairway. And then so the rough was just one summer, we just couldn't stay caught up with the rough because of the rain, and it was just causing some problems where people were talking about the rough more than the golf course. And so finally, the next season, we decided to experiment with it, and it just, it cleaned up a lot of the weeds in the rough. The aesthetics of the golf course too, just improved. So once I saw it and Dad saw it, it looked more natural, where the native just came into play. It looked just, you could see more of the topography of the piece of land, and you weren't looking at these fairway mow lines. It sped up play in a lot of ways, because we've got golfers from, the pros that play out there all the way to, that's the first time they've ever played golf, and everywhere in between. So it brought a lot of the angles back into play on some of the greens, where you could play more creatively. But economically, it'll just let us keep the course in better condition too, because we could just go out there, mow it out, and laterally you got some ball roll in there, and you had to think more about the penal areas of the native and whatnot. But it let us focus some other maintenance hours other places, and in general, it made it easier to take care of, and it looked better. So we would everything's the same height of cut. We just changed the frequency of cut, so that, the tees are getting mowed a few days a week, the approaches and stuff, a lot of times 3 days a week. And then the fairways, we can just kind of go as they grow, and just kind of dial it all in. So it was kind of just an organic, it wasn't really a master planned thing. It just kind of evolved, made sense.
And people liked it, so it stuck around.
Yeah. We didn't change anything, and people would be like, "Yeah, what have you done? It just looks so much better out here." And they didn't even understand what they were looking at. The only people we had problems with was, we've got one gambling group they're great to us, but they're more gamblers than they are golfers. And they were pissed off that, they didn't know where to roll the ball, because they let themselves roll the ball in the fairway, but you can't roll the ball in the rough. And I'm just like, well, if y'all just played golf, you wouldn't have to worry about it, because I don't think you had to roll the ball. But that was really the only problem we really had. That was the only complaint.
Gamblers are always going to have a complaint about something,
Yeah.
though. If you don't give them something to complain about, they don't have an excuse for why they lost.
That's right.
My research team, which is really just fellow members who love talking to people like yourselves, who have made a life of golf. We found a ton on you, Mike, because you've been on some podcasts now. You got articles about your courses that you designed. But Ashley, I was having a hard time digging up dirt, man. So I was hoping that you could maybe just give us, what brought you into golf? What were you doing beforehand? And now you're, owner operator of the fields. But how did you get there? What were your steps?
I would say it was a reluctant journey, I guess. I've grown up with it. Dad mentioned selling. I mean, I remember being at the fields when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, and I'd be out there with Dad, and I just wanted to sit on the bulldozers. And I mean, I remember it being just nothing but red clay. And when he's doing the routing, like I used to go do routings with him, and I'd always try to figure out how he's figuring out how this is going to end up being a golf course. So go out and do the stakings, and he could see, he'd be pointing through a set of trees and be like, yeah, there's going to be a green over there. And we're just standing in these things, and I'm looking for squirrels or something like that. But I didn't realize at the time how much information I was soaking up just growing up around him. And then I got to, I'd go travel with him when he was selling equipment. So we'd go see, I mean, I've been in maintenance barns since I was 6 years old. I think I barely remember raking bunkers one year at the Masters. I think it was 82. I didn't even understand where I was. I was just hanging back there with the guys at the maintenance shed and Dad, and out there on a Sand Pro, and didn't really even understand what Augusta National was. So I was exposed to golf my whole life. And so to me, it was just what my dad did. I didn't really think about it. And then playing golf, the same thing. He never pushed me to play. I enjoyed playing, but it was I'd go play with him, and they're all a bunch of scratch golfers, and I'm still duffing one in the woods. So to me, it was kind of nerve wracking. And but at the same time, I'd be on these crazy courses where I didn't really understand where I was, but I was taking it all in. And so then after college, I just decided I was going to do my own thing. I worked for him all through high school. So my first job was, I was out there with the crews, laying sod. He had me digging bunkers with buddies with nothing but shovels because we couldn't get dozers back in there. And so I worked kind of all aspects of it, and was just like, I'm not going to just do this because it's a layup. I'm going to go do my own thing. But some of it all just translated. I studied art in college before me and the college and my parents decided maybe need to put a hold on college for a little while. And so then I went and I was big into whitewater kayaking, and traveled the country a bit doing that. And then eventually got a job as a design assistant, ironically, with a manufacturer. And so we would bring in molds and do a lot of shaping, kind of the same things we do with a golf course, just on a micro level. So we'd take a piece of foam, like a square block of foam, and we would take that all the way from foam to fiberglass molds to prototyping to actual product that was out there. And a lot of that just had to do, it's like on a golf course, just water, learning how, stuff went across a form, bringing it into form. The same thing, the reality, like, okay, this is my idea, but the practicality of, well, how do we execute it? How do we get it out of a mold? And I think a golf course, you do some of the same things. It's like, well, here's the idea, but how do we actually go in and execute that? So you have just learned a lot about design compromises and whatnot. And then, I don't know, kayaking was the same as golf to me too, that you're just looking at lines, you're trying to visualize a line in your head and then make that line happen. Just in a boat, you're the ball, and a golf, you're hitting the ball.
Yeah.
But then Dad was managing some courses. I'd went back to school and got my finance degree, and I was working at nights for an event company in college, and enjoyed that. We ran a lot of really exclusive big events, and never thought that would come back to serve, but it's proven to, with the running golf events and whatnot. I mean, I'll have, little cotillion type ladies come up and they have a meeting for me with they want to do their wedding out there, and they asked for Ashley and said they had a meeting with her. And I said, well, let me go get her and stuff like that. And I'll be on a tractor all greasy. And then they wonder how the hell I know what a Chiavari chair is or something. And they're just completely confused. So it all kind of was a culmination, I guess, of they came back together. And so when Dad took me down to the fields, I was reluctant. I was like, I don't know if we want to do this. LaGrange, it's in the middle of nowhere. And we started going back and forth. They're managing a few other courses. And then I just kind of fell in love with the place and started polishing it up. And then all that stuff kind of came back to me full circle.
And it's cool to hear that you have that design background elsewhere, because talking to you guys a couple weeks ago, you're kind of designing a different, aside from the golf course, there's a whole lot there just in the golf course. But Ashley, you were talking about some plans to update the facilities, to kind of design a different golf experience than maybe the market has today. What tell us a little bit about those designs and what you guys have in the works for the fields.
I guess it's kind of like a renovation of sorts, but yeah, same thing. Just seeing all the places where people have gone wrong, like what's going on with the industry. And it's I guess it's one thing to have a blank canvas or a blank piece of dirt to work with, but then we got there. The one thing we didn't design was the clubhouse facility, and it was kind of too big for what we needed, inefficient, not really well built in some areas. And so we were trying to figure out what to do with the space. If it had been up to us, it probably would have been a much smaller, different kind of place, but we had it. It was there. So getting to kind of live in it for 5 years when it wasn't ours and we couldn't really tear it apart. We had a lot of time to think, ran a lot of events out there. And we were kind of starting renovations last year, right before the pandemic stuff started affecting tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So we got to take a step back and say, hey, let's really think about this. So we decided to open everything up, and we're putting a lot more. I mean, none of that's too groundbreaking, but a lot more outdoor space. We're opening up the whole bar patio, and then we've had pretty good success with doing some live music out there. Both Dad got me into that as well. When I was younger, he kind of exposed me pretty early, taking me to, I think he took me in like 8th grade to see Neil Young at the Omni. And it was like, my ears were ringing for 3 days after, but I was hooked on live music after that. And, so we've got a beautiful place out there, just not even if you're playing golf, which is one reason I think people like the fields. Cause if you're a duffer, or you're just going out there with your kids to have a good time, or it's just something you do to get outside, you're not in this corridor of trees and houses, and people walk around back, and you're just kind of immediately you kind of just fall into the space in the landscape. And so the clubhouse sits at the top of a hill there, and we decided to just start turning that into a music venue as well. But people like yourself have been super helpful, and people that get it, that are coming out there for other reasons. And so we're trying to just embrace that side of it and make it way more laid back and relaxed, in a place you want to hang out and have some fun that doesn't have so many rules.
Yeah, it's certainly a movement in a way, right, for the game. And I think what's been interesting from where I sit is that the people that do want that laid back, open air, live music, they want all these things that they still respect the traditions of golf, and they're actually coming from that world. A lot of them, like myself, grew up at country clubs and tucking their shirt every time they play. And, it's just this appetite, I think, for authenticity in a way. And that's what I think of when I hear about, places like the fields, is authenticity, because it was built that way, and but you guys you probably see all kinds coming through, right? I mean, the fields doesn't just appeal to the golf heads out there. It's beginners.
There's all kinds, for sure. And I think if we chase the country club thing, or we chase just being known for it being, we didn't have the funds to chase that. It didn't make sense business wise, and two, it was just going to get lost in being the same thing. So we haven't tried to use it as an excuse either to let go on the conditioning side. We try to keep the course for what it is, in very good shape. The greens are way above par most of the season. So we still get it on that end, but we try to, let our hair down, so to speak, on in other aspects. And, but yeah, there's all walks of life out there. We've got some members at Peachtree that play, a couple of them that, there's a guy I was talking to one day on 10, and he's like, yeah, I love playing here. I'm only a member at 2 places. And it was Peachtree and Dornick. And he was I don't know, I won't go into exactly who he was. He might not appreciate that, but he comes down from Atlanta. His mom's got a place down there. And, but yeah, I mean, and then we've got, just yesterday, a friend that owns a restaurant in town came out with her little girl and her husband, and been wanting to check it out, and didn't even have clubs. So I just gave him my personal set of clubs, and put together some other rentals for him. And they went out, and it's the first time they've ever been out there. So you get everything in between. Alan Doyle plays out there about 4 days a week. I mean, he was, kind of honed his game out there before he went pro. So we definitely get all walks of life out there playing, and it's probably not for everybody, but I mean, that's probably where you get lost trying to make it for everybody.
Yeah. Mike, take us back to the decision to purchase the fields and become the owner. Was that, it being your first build, and you've built plenty of golf courses since then and been a part of many projects. Was it an emotional decision at all? You know, kind of the nostalgia of, man, this is my first go. This is my first project that's on it. Would you say that emotion played in it at all?
I knew that I knew that it was, if we could get it at the right deal, that it was where it would fit and you could make it work because it was not lined with homes or houses or any of that. And I, um, I knew that Ashley, once he got down there, he'd put a lot of effort into it. So we both knew that if we, worst case, bought it and didn't like it, we could probably sell it for more than we bought it for. And so it was emotional, but I was trying to, I'm sort of trying to steer it a little and then get out of the way and just let let Ashley and his age group all go with it. And, um, you know, it's, and Ashley and I bought it together, and it's,
Yep. So on those other courses, I do, I mean, we've had a lot of members, like I said, that have come out to the fields and loved it. But doing my research, I mean, you've built other courses in the Atlanta area. So are there any that are some of your favorites, Mike, that you like to recommend people go check out?
one I haven't played much, but I don't know what kind of shape they stay in all the time, but Wolf Creek out near the airport, a lot of people seem to like that one. Heritage is downtown. It's a little, whereas you're growing, you sometimes let owners tell you what they want more than what you want. And it's a more severe golf course. I think the slope's 151, and it's not what I like to build, but it stays in good shape. Good guys run it. A lot of people play there. I think they did 60,000 rounds last year. And then I think we built 26 in the state of Georgia. So we've got them all over the state. And then Katichi is one that one of my favorite ones was shut down. The developer went out and it's closed. I'd like to open it back up, and that's called Long Shadow. But it's I've always sort of championed a public golf, and you really don't have much control once you've left those places. And if you have if you're building for a private club and there's 1,000 members in the club and it needs $1 million renovation, that's $1,000 a member. If you're building for a one owner developer, that's $1 million. So a lot of people don't think about it that way. So you've got two totally different markets, and you don't have the control over how something will look in that public market that you would have when there's a private club that can say, hey, we're going to keep it at this level, and then you didn't got to worry about it. I mean, it's good superintendents are going to keep them up. So,
and is that because on the public side, they're building in what their expected greens fee is of what they can actually, how quickly they can recoup what the investment's going to be. And most public golf courses aren't going to, make greens fees $200, $300. Is that why?
I think that, initially, let's say you can put 35 to 40 lots on a golf hole during the 80s and 90s. And if those lots were just selling for $100,000 a piece, that's $4 million a hole. So these guys would go out and build these golf courses, 18 holes, 20 holes. What is that? 80 million bucks. So it's nothing to build a $10 million golf course that won't function, because you're not really worried about it once you sold all the lots. So all of a sudden we ended up with all of that out there. So the key to coming back and finding places like the fields was to find golf courses that just weren't surrounded by these homes. I mean, I just don't think that'll ever happen again. I think that was a disaster. I mean, you've got green sites now in some of these communities where you can't grow the grass because the trees have gotten so tall, but yet the trees are on the property of the guys hanging around the green. They want to hold you hostage to cutting their trees. It's all kind of stories like that. So it's, I just think that Ashley's age group and I think all of you guys have got a chance to come out of this COVID deal with a different view of golf. And I think it's happening, and it happened accidentally, but they don't want what my age group wanted.
And I don't know about Mike. That's ringing true from what I've seen, and I don't know about you, Ashley, but the people that I see building the publicly accessible golf courses and managing them, and being a part of the game in different ways. No one's looking to, get filthy rich. They're not looking to hit $80 million in lot sales. I think most people are doing it because they were either burnt out from something else and they just really love being a part of golf, and they want to see, they want to have a living, obviously, right? You gotta support your living. But I just think that's a big difference from what Mike just described of the 80s and 90s, where it was a cash grab. And I just don't see that right now. I see people that are building and want to have good stuff, but they're not saying, hey, this is my trust fund. This is not. Do you agree? Do you think like that's what's changed, or that's part of what's changed?
Yeah, I think the architect, remember Pete Dye in some article somewhere, he talked about, he didn't know who Donald Ross was when he was in the Army and stationed over near Pinehurst. He didn't know who he was. Well, the only reason that any of us should know who the architect was, you don't know who the architects are on the buildings in downtown Chicago, except for maybe one or two. But the only reason that came to be was so you could market real estate. It wasn't. The golf course could not afford to market an architect. They had to be selling lots. You take the big resorts, they wanted a name. And some of the big architects, you think about how some of these guys got popular. They were either signatures that played golf that everybody knew, or like in the case of like a Tom Fazio, who did a lot of excellent golf courses around, and might not be the style of everybody but I mean, he was always known for giving them more than they, but his uncle, George Fazio, won the US Open. He was the pro at Pine Valley. Well, if you're the pro at Pine Valley and you've gotten into golf design, every time one of the members goes back home and something needs to be done, you call George. And so you can evolve into these national names that way. So that was how those names got big. But I see it now and I'm laughing sometimes where guys say, well, a good example, I don't think a lot of people have heard of the fella, I think his name's Miller, that did the new thing at Charleston Muni. So,
Yep.
It's like, okay, Charleston Muni's going to be redone. Well, I hear he did a really good job. And everybody's like, well, I've never heard of this guy. Okay, who cares? It's what you really, all that's got to go back. It's got to go away. It's got to be where you got guys like the guys at Sweetens Cove. You got guys like us. You got guys, they just build a golf course, make it where it works. It all boils down not to the paper, but what it looks like when it's finished. And you don't have to say, well, that's not a Tom Doak golf course, or that's not a Fazio golf course, or that's not a Reese Jones. There's a lot of good golf courses out there. And it's funny how so many of the guys my age will never go play those golf courses because they don't have that name on them. And what I've learned is that none of that, what really matters is those guys you met out there that know how to turn that dozer blade. If you get a guy that knows how to put that wood carving in the wood, that's a lot different than the guy that sketched it in charcoal. And I think the younger group is figuring that out. There's so many good guys out there now that design golf courses that people don't know. And I'm talking to somebody my age, and well, that's not a Fazio. That's not this. I'm like, guys, you just don't understand it.
The celebrity of it. That's a really fascinating thought because, and I don't know if our young generation has figured it out completely because I do a lot of planning of trips and I hear it. If we're passing by a Doak or we're passing by a Hans or you name the celebrity architect, they're upset. They want to see those and getting people to go off the beaten path per se and try a place that doesn't have a name attached to it or a celebrity name attached to it sometimes can be difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult, but I think y'all are going to overcome it. It's not going to happen in a year, but I think y'all's age group's going to, when we get to where nobody really worries about what the name is, they just know it's a place they like to play, then we'll probably be where we need to be with golf. Because right now, my age group is more concerned about how the cart path is trimmed out and what size widescreen TV you got over the urinal and those kind of things. And your guys, I mean, we don't do a lot of work over there on the cart paths and all that stuff out on the edges. It's we're not going to spend 100 grand a year pruning roots or something. If there's a place where you need to drop the ball, we'll drop the ball. And if there's a tournament, we'll come up with a rule that keeps you from breaking your wrist or something. But just like I call it the European model. Those guys understand they're going to play golf. And that's,
Yeah, it's obviously been a big inspiration for us as anybody that gets over there and sees how everyone engages with the game. You come home and you say, man, I think they're doing something right because they got a higher percentage of their population that plays golf, and everything's just much more sustainable in terms of cost and price point.
well, if you imagine if you had a house that was $250,000 house and the guy says, oh, you need to put a slate roof on it. Well, that's the way golf has gotten is the guy comes in and says, hey, you need to build a USGA green for this or this or this. Your golf course might not can afford that. It might not can afford triple row irrigation or whatever. You've got to make it work for the numbers. And so many private club golfers think you don't know what you're doing if you try to build a product that's economically efficient that works. And you might be using the same materials, the same labor, everything else, but you're not going to put the maintenance level into what they've got. And it's changed. It changes the cost. You can't charge $40 or $50 to play golf and have $1 million maintenance budget. Doesn't work.
Do you, and I don't know this side of the game that well, the build side and design side, but I do think you're right, Mike, that the younger generations are going to start just focusing less on the celebrity draw of certain places and the hype of them, and just going where friends have recommended that it's good golf, and not associated too much with the price point or the prestige or the name. On the architect side, though, I mean, we need good architects to go build those those courses at places that have $30-$40 green fees. And every time I've talked to architects on this podcast, it has been, they're aspirational just like anybody, and they want to make the money that the big guys have made. They want to have a firm like Corin Crenshaw someday. I mean, they aspire to big projects and big prestige and names. So how much of a problem is that? Are there enough good architects out there taking jobs that aren't going to make them, millionaires?
Well, you got to do it because you love doing it. Okay. But my theory, and it probably was not when I started, and when a lot of the other guys started, it was not the way to go. But we did design build. You got a lot of young guys now. If they quit worrying about how many magazines they get in and start doing design build, they can make a pretty good living. If they think they're just going to sit there and draw a drawing and then sub it out to a contractor here and a contractor there, It's not going to be that many of those jobs. And then you're not going to be able to charge enough. I mean, I can't imagine anything much more boring than going around meeting with country club boards that you can't keep their attention span for more than an hour. And they're hiring you based on, it's a personality thing. They're hiring you to come in there. Oh, I love his drawings. Do 50 bunkers. The guy that makes the money is the contractor. You can't charge enough to. So these guys have got to start doing their own build. If they do their own build while they're doing their design, they can make money. But I just don't think there's much market for. I think you got to become vertical. You got to have it where everybody in that company, you can design it, you can build it, and you can operate it or grow it in if you need to. But the BS is over. It's just, it was done on purpose. There's a book out called A Difficult Par by Jim Hansen. And in that book, it's the biography of Robert Trent Jones, and he talks about back in the 80s when a group of architects, they all wanted to get together to be more professional. And it was a deliberate attempt to be more professional, because there were a lot of guys out there that were doing design build, and they wanted to be able to stand out above those. And I think that's when let's face it, somebody might shoot me for this, but when I got in it, there just weren't that many good architects. And I'm not saying that I am, but I ended up with enough courses to do, and I've just seen some of these things that were just not very creative. And I think now we've got a lot of, I mean, I'm comfortable with Ashley going and building a course. I'm comfortable with, you got guys out there that want to do it, that are on the dozers. It's a team effort. There's just not it's just not where you draw that thing and hand it off to somebody. And if you come in there once a month, you're not going to get the same product. It's a design build business. It's a craft. It's not a profession.
Craftsmen, artisans. The people that I talk to, that I always walk away from the conversation that really have that deeper passion for. That's what they are, for sure. Craftsmen. Ashley, let's talk about the operations of new places in this kind of mindset, extending beyond building the golf courses and into, running them, which has its challenges. I know, because I work with hundreds of operators now, and this is my daily job, is talking to them most of the time. And I know there's challenges there. So what has been your philosophy of operating a public fee golf course, and where do you think the industry has kind of screwed up at times? I mean, we publicly see all the challenges, but have you seen things that, man, I'm not going to do it that way?
I mean, absolutely, every day. I mean, even things I do myself, I turn around and go, wow, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. But I don't know. It's a weird business, because people think of it as the golf business, but as an owner, you're really running a conglomeration of notoriously difficult and low profit margin businesses all under one roof. So you're basically running a farm, a restaurant, and a retail operation, which all in themselves have a high likelihood of not succeeding. And then you decide you're going to do it all. And a lot of places have a guy that wanted to play golf in college or on the tour and didn't make it and wanted to be around golf. And then that's the dude you're putting in charge of your farm, restaurant, and retail operation. And that's kind of how I look at it. And because a superintendent's just a farmer, you're just trying to grow Bermuda grass, or at least in our case, Bermuda grass or bent grass up in y'all's place, or whatever it is you're growing. But I think maintenance side too, I heard somebody say once, a superintendent, that, Dad was talking about these $2 million budgets, but like at our place, superintendent said something like, you could spend so much money in your budget managing that last 10%. So whether you choose to just let that last 10% go and get the 90% right. But if you're the same with watering or whatnot, I mean, you look at, maybe you have some dry areas, some brown areas. Well, in order to get the coverage, like from a design standpoint or an operation standpoint, to get that irrigation coverage where you know, over here by the cart path is fine, or this one little spot's right. You might have to spend so much money on water or irrigation or time to get 100% green, but then you end up, from a playability wise, maybe wet over here or whatnot. So are you going for playability, you're going for aesthetics? I mean, so as an owner, you're always making those choices. I mean, some of them are design choices or operation choices or finance choices, but it's I think that's what we do there, is we decide what part of that 10% we're just going to let go. And
from a maintenance standpoint, I think what I've read on your guys' side is, you know, you have to make those decisions where the budget's allocated, right? And it seems like the greens are kind of the main part, and then maybe other areas you have to say, okay, we're going to live with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does what it does, and you've got to make it, you know, operate in the black. And so when we got there, we haven't really changed the maintenance budget too much. We really haven't changed the equipment too much. We ended up using for years the same equipment they had and same budget. But if you take if you look at it like per acre, and you said, hey, I'm going to take this budget and spread it over this entire piece of land, if you kind of reconstitute that. And so we just concentrated a lot more of it around the greens. We really tried to get those in shape, and instead of trying to go out here and, you know, fertilize all the fairways 3 times a year, maybe drop it back to 1. You know, instead of going after these weeds in the rough, let them go, but make sure the greens are super clean. Then that just kind of evolved into the approaches. So we've got 3 acres of greens. That's where the most intense work goes. Then 10 acres of surrounds that we really keep super tight in the growing season. And we get a lot of compliments about that. A lot of people have played some really nice places, come down and are really surprised. Now you get 20 feet past that, and some of the fairways, you might have some clay patches. You might have some wear patches from the carts. It's another thing with public golf, like you know, people talk about Scotland, or they talk about Pacific Dunes, or they talk about Pinehurst. They don't have some drunk jackass driving around doing, you know, 30,000 rounds a year, where they're all in these, you know, just DUI buggies where they're driving around doing whatever they want. I mean, they're walking, they've got caddies. It's the cart does so much to the golf course. So, but yeah, maintenance wise, that's kind of what and then changing some things back. Like Dad was talking about design and what people spend. I mean, we designed and built the fields, but the second owner brought in another, not another architect, but another golf contractor, and they decided to redo all the tee boxes. And he was a member down at Sage Valley. And so he was obviously getting some consulting from the superintendent there, and the guy had deep pockets. So he got a brand new fleet of maintenance equipment, and they redid the tees, but they sand capped them all with, I mean, some of them we took out. We're gradually redoing them, but I mean, there was 12 plus inches of sand in most of the back and middle tee boxes. And it was, I mean, they do that because at places like Sage Valley, where they're walk mowing their tees, almost treating them like greens, they're mowing them down at, you know, 1/4 inch and or less. They water them daily, so they've got to keep them firm. They're not getting the kind of play we are, but they didn't have the water out of the fields to do it. They didn't have the irrigation system. So he did all that. And then they go back and put he spent all that money, push these tees up, and then go back and put in, to save money, the same Rainbird impact heads that have been there since 1989. And you couldn't water these tees, and he didn't have the mowing equipment to mow them. He wasn't going to pay the labor to mow them that frequently. So then they just dried out because the one day a week you're watering them, they just perk right through, and then all the teas are dead. So what he spent all this money on to be a quote unquote improvement, the maintenance level, you couldn't maintain it. So we're going back and pushing the sand out of those and getting back to a clay base where it can hold some water and mowing them a little higher. And to the golfer, that translates into more grass, a better looking tee box to their eye. But if you look at it on paper, you're like, well, this is a couple of $12 an hour guys that built this tee, and Medalist Golf built this tee, or whatever golf, not Medalist, or whatever company was here, they're a contractor. And like, not that they did a bad job at it, but they're building something that they don't have any control over who's maintaining it. And it was built to this spec. So who's to say which one's better? Because of it's a lot of it does come down to maintenance.
I see a lot of shiny object syndrome in golf. Myself as a golfer, right? You convince yourself that new driver for $600 is it's gonna do it. It's gonna add 12 yards to my game this year, and I'm gonna be a totally new golfer. All right, I have to have that new putter. There's that on the consumer side, but then on golf courses, right? Country clubs always are kind of chasing their neighbor that has something shiny that they now want. And I hearing you say that, like, the sustainability is the word I come back to, right? Okay. Right now, we'll use that as the example. We're in a boom time for golf. COVID's been terrible for so many people, but golf industry has seen rounds through the roof, and everybody's now deciding what to do with those excess funds. And what I keep thinking to myself, and I'm a part of different places that have done this, but what is this going to look like in a recession? What is, the improvements we make and the dollars that we're spending to do all this stuff at our golf course? Is it, there's maintenance attached to that. There's other financial impacts attached to that. It looks great for 2021 because, profits are up, revenues are up, but what does it look like in a recession? I don't think people are asking themselves that. And isn't that, Mike would know better than I would, but isn't that what kind of happened with the 80s and 90s too? Is that we were kind of spending out of control on things that we thought we needed, and then turn around in the 2000s, and people are like, no, I don't actually enjoy that much.
Yeah, I can talk to you about that. This entire business, the business of golf and the game of golf are two entirely different things. And when I was growing up, let's start there. If I wanted a nice set of golf clubs, I had to go to the golf pro. He could order them, get what I needed. If I wanted to buy a Titleist golf ball, I had to go to the golf pro. Now, all of a sudden, that same club can be bought in a PGA Superstore. There's 4 PGA Superstores in Atlanta. They do over $100 million a year. If that $100 million a year was going to the same entity that cuts that 4 1/4 inch cup, and there's say 400 of those entities in a state, you divide that out, how much money gets pulled away from the actual playing field by all of these various things. And then in America, we just have this, we have allowed the PGA of America has got 28,000 members. Golf course superintendents are 20,000. I don't know what club managers got, but you figure that how many large industries do you know where the main associations are for employees and not owners? And then those employees want to tell these owners how to do it. And the ideal growing medium for that is the private club. And so then you get into a private club and you've got these boards, which are egos. And it's like, I want to do it a little bit more than my last guy did. So all they know is what they heard in a 1 hour long dissertation from someone. And they go through all that. And if it's all about, like you said, they want to do it a little bit better than their neighbor. Well, so all the vendors and everybody else are sitting back looking at that. They're supporting these the high dollar buyers, And everybody's saying, hey, I can make money here. I can make money. I can sell this greens more. I can sell this lightweight fairway unit. I can sell all of these things. And so the path of least resistance is to go to private clubs. And everything there gets to where it's so over the top that when things go bad or there's a recession, clubs start saying, how are we going to do it? And so I just have one question that I try to ask clubs, and a lot of them don't like it, but is that club there for the member or is that member there for the club? And in so many cases today, the member is there for the club because they have created via these associations. And I'm old enough now where if they don't like me saying that, they can just do whatever. But via those associations, they can't, everybody they've got hired there is telling them what to do. And so you get to where it's just way over the top. And I see that all the time. I really, every once in a while, will do something with those guys, but I really don't get involved with a lot of private clubs because it's a headache. I mean, I had some friends the other day that were architects coming down to Georgia to interview at a private club. And I said, well, how many interviews? He said, well, there's 14, but then we're going to narrow it down to 7. Then they're going to come back at 3. I said, well, that just has your stomach churning the whole time because it's not whether you're good or whether they like your product. You're just sitting there. It's a dog and pony show and nothing. Don't get to where your whole business is based on that. So I think that you've got to, the way y'all's age group is going, it's going to take a lot of that out. And I don't think the public courses and the abandons and that will be hurt by recessions nearly as much as some of these major renovations we've seen lately that these private clubs have done. And I mean, that's a lot of dollars and a lot of money. And a guy can easily just say, you know what, I'm going to go down there and play at the fields, or I'm going to go here. It's just,
I think a recession would help. Without saying a recession would help, the recession might help the golf business, especially the public golf business, long term, because as Dad was talking about the real estate, I've heard him say before. I mean, a lot of those places weren't built for golf demand; they were built for development demand or housing demand. So there's just too much out there. So same thing, you divide all the golf that's being played amongst the courses. You've got a lot that are just hanging on. And if somebody's not serious about it or they can't operate it efficiently, and some of those places go away in communities that have so much supply, and the golfer a lot of times looks at it like, oh, it's great because I can get on Golf Now or this and go play for $25, but then he's pissed off at the condition of some of these places. Well, if some of those places just go away, you know, the rounds don't, the price doesn't have to go up that much, but then you've got a lot more volume playing at those places that made it. And it's going to be easier for them to make it and make a living and keep the places that need to stay around, like the fields. And I'm not saying that just because it's ours, but whereas some of these other places that might not have should ever been built can just go away. And that's going to have to happen. And there'd be a much healthier place for golf in the end, and people would end up with a better product that it's still a pretty reasonable price. So I'm not really scared of a recession on our end, because we know how to operate it in triage mode, and you can get through that. But if you're just operating on the fluff, then yeah, it would scare the hell out of me.
It's an interesting take. And I grew up in Ohio and Northeast Ohio, and we've lost there. Man, so many mediocre golf courses. And then you see 2020, everyone's working from home, the boom in rounds. I got all my buddies complaining about getting tee times, and that, man, all these courses have closed in the last 5 to 10 years. It's crazy. We need to open a golf course. And I keep thinking what you're thinking, Ashley, which is like, these courses that are seeing full tee sheets and dollars coming back their way. Man, I hope they know how to operate, because if they do, those dollars can go into making really good golf. and that contraction of the market now is a really good thing, because we went from having all these mediocre golf courses to, you know, full active, awesome golf courses that, you know, can compete with a private club in terms of experience and in terms of just the quality of golf. But we still got a ways. We're not there just yet.
Yeah.
Ashley, I want to ask you about the Fields party. So you're a big music guy, as you already mentioned. You lived in New York for a while, ran some big events. Tell me what the Fields party is. How would you describe it to somebody who had no idea what it is?
I don't even think it is what it is yet. Like, it's going to take a few more years for people to really see what we want to do out there. I think it could, but it kind of happened organically. Like, we were just trying to trying to do something, just a customer appreciation thing that ended a few years ago. And I'd heard this really good band out of Nashville that I was just immediately like, I got to get these guys. And I called their manager up in Nashville. I mean, never met them, never seen them live, just heard their stuff. And I said, and he was like, you want to do what? He's like, it's a golf course. We don't play at country clubs. And I'm just like, so we worked it out. These guys drive up from Mobile, and we were trying to, you know, really just have a customer appreciation party. Just tell people, thanks for supporting us, kind of celebrating buying the course. We wanted to kind of show off the back to a lot of people in the community that look at us. A lot of people that aren't familiar with golf still think it's a private kind of bourgeoisie thing. And like, they don't know if they can come out there and eat. Can they come out there and bring their kid and hit a bucket of balls? You know, can you wear jeans? Do you have to have you know, it's still, and we're a pretty blue collar town in LaGrange. I think a pretty normal town for America, and people aren't, there's a lot of misconceptions about golf, and people that would come out and have fun at our place. The stigma of it or whatnot keeps them from coming out. So we were trying to do something, just invite the community too, and say, hey, y'all come out and just, it's pretty out here. A lot of people just play golf because, I mean, they know they suck at golf, but they come out at the end of the day and play because they get to walk around in a pretty spot and just let their head go. And so we were trying to just get people to see the place differently. A lot of people too come out there, they're fighting for 8 a.m. rounds. They finish at 1. It's hot as hell in Georgia. They're out of there. And my favorite time of the day out of the fields is sunset. And you usually get the hardcore walkers that are out there in the evenings. And those are the only people that ever saw it. And so we decided to throw this party just to do a barbecue and all that. And anyway, the first year I'd already paid all this money for the band. They're coming, and then it hasn't rained. We were on a 48-day drought, I think. And so here comes this tropical storm. We've got like sound and production. And I had my friend, we'd smoked 3 hogs, 120 chickens. Like, it was and then here comes this tropical storm, and they're saying we're going to get like 8 inches of rain. It's blowing, the whole thing's outside. So the sound guy went and set up all the sound equipment's there. The band's like, should we come? People are calling, they've already bought tickets. And so me and the superintendent, I walked down to the maintenance barn, and they're like, what are we going to do? And I said, look, we've already spent all the money. I said, so we're going to throw a party. Whoever comes. And so I had to move. They looked at me like it was crazy. We moved every lawnmower and tractor and bag of fertilizer out of our maintenance shed because the clubhouse wasn't big enough. And we rented some porta potties, and the sound man, we stuffed like enough sound for 500 people inside our maintenance barn. My friend that had just being from the event company, we borrowed some pipe and draped off the stage. And then the sound was incredible. And like the 100 people that came, like, we blew the doors off that place. And the band had a great time. They ended up being awesome. We've become friends with them. They came back and played last year. So the word of mouth around town was just don't miss an event. So when we did it the next year, it was just, we had almost 400 people show up on the back lawn and had the same band come out. So a lot of people didn't get to hear them, and had a couple other local bands. And so now it's just kind of become a thing that people look forward to, and we hope to keep growing it.
I'll tell you this now because I read a little write-up on the field party, and I think they had quotes of the band, talking about what a unique environment it was and the best acoustics they've had, and maybe anywhere is what the one quote was, and just the description of that party. Ashley, I knew the golf course was a place that our members would enjoy, but that's why I called you guys about our member this year, is that party. And that's what we look for in our member is like, yeah, the golf is, it's central. It's part of our DNA and who we are. But if we can get some live music and maybe some barbecue and just that good vibe, that's what we're looking for in September, boys. So maybe not as full scale as the field party, but something similar.
We'll have some fun. It's we enjoy doing those things.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are set up for it, man. I mean, the pictures I've seen from the back patio and just that setting is pretty ideal for a party.
No, it absolutely is.
Well, I could talk to you guys all day, and I'm sure you got other things to do. So I'm going to start wrapping us up with a little something that we call the 19th soul. It's 18 quick questions to reveal the soul of the golfer. So this will be Team Young here. I'm not going to make you guys answer each one. We're going to do, would you like to do front nine, back nine, or would you like to go alternate shot? What would you prefer?
I'd probably say alternate shot.
All right, we'll go one after the other. I'll bounce between you guys. I took 35 questions from Marcel Proust, who's a French novelist of the 20th century, and he was looking to uncover the truest nature of a human being. And what we're trying to do with these 18 questions is get to the soul of the golfer with you guys. So who's going to get me started? Number one.
Let Ashley.
All right, Ashley. When were you the happiest on the golf course?
I think building them when I was little with Dad, being out there when it was just when I was untainted by any of the views I might have now, just walking around on one, seeing a piece of land as what it was going to be, and that's what golf kind of always was to me. So even when I play now, I'm always looking at that stuff. But yeah, just walking around looking at it as a landscape and not as a high to cut, but just that's when I'm happiest. Even now, like I'll go out in the evenings and just walk around it. So I think that's it.
That's a great opening hole right there. Number two, Mike, what's the scariest shot in golf?
Tight lie, flop shot, short side, green sloping away from you.
A lot of that concession I saw on TV this past week.
Yes, there is.
Number three, Ashley, what is your go-to order at the halfway house?
Usually depends on the amount of beers I've drank, but probably, I would just say hot dog, mustard, whatever beer is the coldest.
Number four, Mike, what is the trait you most deplore in your own golf game?
Let's see. Can cart addiction be a trait?
Yes, that qualifies.
Okay.
That definitely qualifies.
And that's because I love to walk, but so many guys I play with my age are going to ride a cart and they don't want you walking when we're at the club so anyway. That's that for me.
No, it's tough. Number five, Ashley, what is the quality you look most for in a playing partner?
Somebody just doesn't take it so damn serious. Somebody you can get out there and laugh with. So I think just jovialness, I guess. Somebody that can give you some serious shit too.
Number 6, Mike, what is the trait you most deplore in other people's golf games?
Not understanding how significant the difference is between them and the tour player.
Yeah, we all need a little humble pie. Number 7, Ashley, what words or phrases do you most overuse on the golf course?
I'm pretty quiet out there on the golf course. I can't even, that's botching your question, but I don't take my game too seriously. So it's
You're fresh every time. That's
yeah.
good. Number 8, Mike, what golfing talent would you most want to have yourself?
I mean, what personal?
Yeah, what golfing
Golfer?
talent, what part of the golf game would you wish you had for yourself to be really, really good at?
Oh, 50, 60-yard pitch shot.
That is where the cheddar is made. Number 9, approaching the turn. Ashley, what is your most treasured golf possession?
Treasured golf possession. I think probably my memorabilia wise, does that count, or just the playing wise, like whatever? I've still got a tag, I guess, from what I was saying from the being on the maintenance crew. It's a superintendent's badge Dad got me when I was at the 82 Masters. I guess I was probably 6 years old. So that's probably that's a cool one. Equipment, big believer it's the Indian, not the arrow. So I don't know. I don't get too attached to much that wise, but yeah, memorabilia wise, that'd probably be it.
Number 10, Mike, what's the one thing in your golf bag that you should throw out?
20-degree hybrid.
Any reason?
It's just I don't like them.
Number 11, Ashley, what is your favorite occupation at the golf course? Good question for a golf operator.
Yeah, mowing approaches. If I have a rough day, I like to just put my headphones on, go out there, and it's super just rewarding. Nobody bothers me, but you feel like you're making a difference in something. You can see it. I don't know, it's relaxing. So I like mowing approaches.
Mike, have you ever asked another golfer for their autograph?
I asked a guy via my shaper. I asked Ben Hogan for his, and my shaper's dad was Ben Hogan's golf pro and his traveling mate for a long time, and a guy named Dick Metz who was at Shady Oaks. And when Shaper was in the office one day, I said, "There's one autograph I've always wanted," and he said, "Well, let me call Miss Valerie," or whatever her name was. So we'll get that done. Well, within a week, I had the Hogan autograph back, and then we've gotten a few.
That's a good one.
Few others like that, but that was. I try to always leave those guys alone.
Right.
Just doesn't mean that much to me.
Ashley, what historical golf figure do you most relate to?
I'd probably say, I guess relate to. I think Ross a lot. Like when I went to Scotland a while back, I just spent 3 weeks camping, like backpacking and checking out golf courses. And one morning I camped out on the beach at Dornick, and I got out of my tent and put on a golf shirt and walked to the golf shop and rented some clubs and said, "Hey, can you get me on?" And they let me go off by myself. And I was out there, and I know he spent a lot of time there, and he was a superintendent turned architect. And I just fell in love with Scotland and that place. And it was so little about, I had so many non-expectations about Dornick, and it's so famous, but then you just got it being there. You're like, man, this would just be a cool place, even if there wasn't this golf course here. And but just how his career and what went, and growing up listening to Dad talk about him, it just how it seemed like he was in it for the right reasons.
That's great. That's a great answer. That's one of the best ones we've had. I haven't had anyone respond with sleeping in a tent on the beach of Dornoch yet for that one. Mike, any golf regrets? Do you have a greatest golf regret?
A greatest golf regret. Well, I'm sure there's some. It's I've been fortunate to, I guess I've got a course we did in Costa Rica, and talking about autographs, we'll go to that. That's part of the regret. Was Neil Armstrong was there, and he'd written me a letter about liking the golf course, and I had an opportunity to play golf with Neil Armstrong, and I didn't get to play with him.
Wow.
And that would have been my, just right off the top of my head. I'm sure there's some, but that's, here's a dude that never signed autographs and was down there because he and the owner were big buddies, and he didn't come down that often. They wanted me to take him out and play golf, and I was doing something else, and it didn't happen. But I wish I could have done that. I'd have loved to talk to the dude who'd been on the moon for 3-4 hours.
That's a good one. I feel like from these questions, I need to schedule 2 separate pods now just to talk to you guys about these one-off stuff. Ashley, number 15, this is tough for architecture guys, so forgive me, because these next 2 questions always stump everybody. But Ashley, what's your favorite hole in all of golf?
Oh man. I'm terrible sometimes about the actual holes. Ones I've played recently, I don't know, I can't pick just one. Ones I played recently, I'd have to look at it almost as I guess memories. Being out at Pacific Dunes with Dad, there's some of my favorite holes out there. We played one time, just walked some of his buddies, and we played the Sheep Ranch before it was the Sheep Ranch. And I don't know exactly what number hole it would have been, but that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had on a golf course, is being out there on one of those greens, just hitting shots in with Dad. And then another one probably just be a hole at the Fields, probably 7, or because of the view, or number 10 out there. Because I remember being out there when I was younger, when it was being built, and looking back now and seeing how that came full circle. But I don't know. That was kind of beating around the bush, your answer. I don't really have a number favorite hole. That's probably it.
You got there. It's people always just probably most of the time just go with what's recent, because that's a hard one. Now, Mike, I'm actually happy you got this one though. What's your least favorite hole in all of golf?
In all of golf, my least favorite hole. Never thought about it that way. Give me a second to
take your time. We do edit this, by the way, gentlemen. So you will sound.
Let me give you a shocker that it's one that I don't people are going to say the guy's an idiot. My least favorite hole that's got a lot of notoriety, and I don't care for it today, is the road hole at St. Andrews. And I say that because of I just don't feel like you're meant to hit it over a hotel. It's not that I think it's a bad hole. It's my least favorite. Not saying it's bad. It's just, for me, it's just, if I was to build that today, people probably would argue with me on it. Just happens to be in the setting and all that. It's grown past what it was meant to be.
I'm a
Does that
sucker.
make sense at all?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for good contrarian answers. I'll just say this on this podcast we've been doing. This is our 5th or 6th episode this year. The 17th at St. Andrews has been the favorite hole of at least 2 of those guests. So but I hear you. I understand what you're saying, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I'm not supposed to have to hit it to get the right approach. It's different.
It's different. And I'll say this to add to it. There's a lot. It's a commonly replicated hole, right? People take templates and try to rebuild them everywhere. At courses that do that, the road hole is typically one of my least favorites.
That's what I'm sort of trying to say. Yeah,
I could name
in
3
that
or 4.
setting and all, I can appreciate everything that's meant to the game, but building that hole or that template would be my least favorite.
Yeah, trying to do it elsewhere, kind of.
You said it better than I did.
Wow, you really that's another pot in itself, man. We could just go through template holes and talk about all that.
Yeah.
But we don't want to make this 3 hours. 17 and 18. So 17, Ashley, this is a good one for you as we've been talking about music. If you had one song to listen to for the golf course for the rest of your life and you only get one, what song you going with?
Oh God, man. Oh, one song. I couldn't pick one song about anything. Let's see. I'd probably just put on some, pick one of my favorites from the Grateful Dead, because you can just listen to that for over and over on loop hours. There's so many great songs that you might get tired of them. So I'd probably that's what I listen to mowing a lot of times. I'd probably just throw on some Grateful Dead. So if it had to be one, maybe, I don't know, Walking on the Moon, maybe. We'll see.
Long one, make it count.
Something long. Let it go before it has to repeat again.
And number 18, last question, Mike. If you had a motto, maybe you do, but if you had a motto, what would it be?
For golf?
Yeah.
For design or what?
Yeah, you can take it for whatever you'd like, but something related to golf in life. They're usually pretty applicable.
Just keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Guys, this has been a lot of fun this morning. I appreciate you coming on the show, giving us some insight to the fields. We're looking forward to being down with you guys. Where can everybody that's not a member of NewClub look you guys up? Where should they go?
Ashley,
Yeah. Our website, thefieldsgolfclub.com, and there's some links on there to articles, and we're redoing it right now to get some better photos up. If you just want to see photos, we try to keep the Instagram is a good place to go. Facebook we're not as active on, but we'll get better than that. But yeah, we're on Twitter. I think the Fields GC. we're on all the platforms. You can usually find us with the Fields Golf Club search. But I'd say Instagram, probably a good spot to start.
Great. And
then I've got mydgolf.com is the website for the design.
Great. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on. Really, really fun discussion to be a part of. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys soon because I'll be down there with the NewClub group.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be throwing a good party for you guys soon.
Yes, sir. All right.